Today I am here on the beautiful Caribbean island of Puerto Rico, and today we are going to visit Caguana, which is the ancient city that used to be in the center of Puerto Rico. If you look where this place is on a map, it's in the middle of nowhere on the island and way up in the mountains. But I mean, it's kind of nice to get away from the big city. I was in San Juan all day yesterday. Now, one of the most impressive things about Caguana is the number of petroglyphs they found on the site. These are rocks that basically have images carved into them. And this is a very obvious and clear indication of ancient civilization here. It's also very impressive to look at and think that these lasted hundreds and, well, maybe even 1,000 years after they were created. And it just leaves more of a mark than what's usually found in North America at indigenous sites of, you know, just some mounds and earth. But I mean, all of these stones are still arranged here as if they were here not all that long ago. And I can only imagine what it would have been like to be an archaeologist who discovered this, and I can't think of a more obvious way that someone could realize that this is the site of an ancient city. So Caguana is home to 12 different ball courts. That's what these big square areas are, and they also believe that these are astronomically aligned with particular celestial events that happen, like with the moon and the sun. I'm not exactly sure what those are. I don't see it marked, but it is still just very impressive to see this. After over 1,000 years, all this stuff is still standing. Now, the descendants of the people of Caguana still exist today. These people are called the Tainos. Some of them still exist and have some tribal society in Puerto Rico, but for the most part, most Puerto Ricans are very mixed at this point, and a lot of the Taino culture has been lost for the most part, and most people really don't know how much ancestry they have with the Tainos until they actually have a genetic test. But I mean, the legacy of the Tainos is still here. It's still very incredible here at Caguana. And I just think it's very cool that they still have something like this they can go to and appreciate what their ancestors had built even before Columbus had come. So these are the petroglyphs that Caguana is known for. While we do not know the exact purpose of these petroglyphs, it is still really cool they left this behind because, I mean, it's one thing for a civilization to exist, but it's another thing for a civilization to leave their mark set in stone, which is what they did here. So this heron-like image is often the symbol of Caguana. It's just kind of the most recognizable piece of history here. We believe this was a symbol of fertility, or the fertility goddess of Atabe, and although this site was abandoned well before Columbus had arrived, we believe that this goddess still continued to be worshipped by the local Tainos until the time that Columbus had arrived in the second expedition in the 1400s. But I have to give it to the ancient Tainos. Like, this is actually a very cool symbol that they left behind. I've seen it before in the video game Civ 6. That's where I know this from. In fact, that's how I discovered this site, was just the name recognition here. But I just think it's really incredible they did this, because like they were real artists back then. I'll give it to them. They were real artists. So Caguana is believed to be the largest indigenous site in the Caribbean prior to European contact. And they believe that it reached its height around the year 1200. And scientists were very impressed with the amount of engineering that went into this site and flattening the land. This site was discovered in the year 1912 when it began to be excavated, and it was actually discovered by local people in the island of Puerto Rico. And after excavation, the scientists were extremely impressed with all the different sites they found. There was lots of indigenous cities and settlements on the island. They believe about 20,000 people lived here prior to contact with Columbus, and they had a very advanced culture. But interestingly, they believe that the settlers of Caguana actually originated from the Amazon basin and not like North America or any nearby islands, I guess. And I guess that's just where people who settled this area just came from. I guess they had to come from somewhere. But I just think this is very interesting. The Tainos, for a long time, it was believed that they had been wiped out by European diseases in their entirety. But recent genetic studies have shown that about 1/6 of the Puerto Rican genome on the average person actually originates from this Tainos, which means that a lot of them actually did survive colonization and are, in a way, still here today. So prior to European contact, we believe that the island of Puerto Rico was referred to as Borokeen. I might be butchering that pronunciation. The first people arrived about 6,000 years ago to this island and introduced things like pottery, food, like different foods like sloths and birds and mollusks. These are all very impressive artifacts. We've got arrowheads and seashell beads and various pottery. I mean, the pottery I think is incredible. I've not seen this at a Pre Columbian settlement before, so I think that is really cool. They have like all this pottery and all this like stoneworking, and this is amazing. One of the things that the indigenous people of Caguana were known for were the stone belts, and as you can see, these are absolutely massive, and we do not actually know what the original use for this was, or if it was just purely ceremonial, but whoever made these clearly put a ton of effort into it to make it a single stone ring. Like, this isn't made out of concrete, like somebody carved this out of stone. So whatever its use was, it was clearly very important to whoever lived here. Although the ones in Borquin are about this size, it's believed that the people who lived in Haiti or Hispaniola, where Haiti and Dominican Republic are today, made much bigger ones. These are pretty much the normal size for the ones that came from the island of Puerto Rico prior to European contact. And towards the end, we get these stone carvings that we believed are part of a cleaning ritual. We believe they actually used vomit as part of this cleaning ritual. Personally, to me, vomit's one of the most unclean things I can think of. But this is still just absolutely fantastic masonry. I mean, just look at the carvings on this one. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. So I'm at another pre-Columbian site here on the island of Puerto Rico, just north of the city of Ponce. And although I asked them about this, it says no commercial photography or filming without authorization. I asked their permission, so just in case anybody has any questions about that on YouTube, I did ask permission and they said I can go forward. So Tibes is the other pre-Columbian site on the island of Puerto Rico, and it's just north of the city of Ponce. Tibes was actually not discovered until the year 1975, much more recently than Caguana. The reason why it was discovered is because there was actually a giant flood that hit the city, and it wiped away a lot of landscape, and it actually revealed what was below the surface, which was this Native American site. So they have 7 ball courts, just like in Caguana, but they also have 2 ceremonial plazas and so lots of other artifacts that they pulled from the site over the years. But I just think it's incredible that there is another one of these. And believe me, this will be the much easier one to go to if you ever come to Puerto Rico. I'm not gonna lie, driving up to Caguana was one of the scariest drives I've ever had, and leaving was even worse. So yeah, just be careful, and if you are not one who thinks they're a very good driver, you should probably just come to Tibes and not Caguana if you're interested in seeing these sites. So it is believed that Tibes is a little bit older than Caguana is. I'm not sure it's by a lot, but it should be a little bit older, because I remember reading in the Caguana Museum that basically the site may have existed maybe 200 years earlier, and they believe that this site may have been an inspiration for Caguana. And I have to say, I'm a lot more impressed with the rock structures here. So something I noticed about Tibes is that although the petroglyphs aren't nearly as impressive as they were at Caguana, these rock structures are just a lot more impressive. Like, there's more ball courts, and there's even 2 plazas here, and I do feel like there's still a lot to see. But it's just really cool to see like what the New World looked like before Columbus, and just see these pre-Columbian sites. It's just cool to see like what life was before. And even though they didn't leave anything in writing, leaving things set in stone is really what counts. And I do think there's definitely a lot of that here on the island of Puerto Rico. So as I mentioned earlier, the Tainos, they practiced skull deformation, which, as you can see, this is kind of an example where the one skull on the bottom is deforming compared to the one on the top, where they basically used like binding cloths to basically make it grow a certain way. And that's just kind of one of the typical things about the Tainos who lived in Puerto Rico. This is an actual human moraine from the pre-Taino cultures. Most of what we know about the pre-Tainos is that they practiced a lot of ceremonial burial, and they clearly believed in life after death, because they buried a lot of individuals with gifts and such. So it's just kind of important to talk about them, as well as the Tainos came from South America and were not immediately here, at least in the historical record. I really enjoyed this trip to Caguana and to Tibes to see the pre-Columbian sites on the island that was built by the native Tainos. It's just kind of cool to see everything set in stone by a group of people that, although they aren't really still here as their civilization, they still do live on through the modern Puerto Ricans, and it's just kind of cool to see this legacy is still left there for them. So I really appreciated this trip. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot of new things about the island of Puerto Rico. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will see you on the next one.